I have seen you here before. Not a coincidence, I'm sure. I hope you're looking at me now from the corner of your eye. Someday I will see more than just your beauty.
After checking in late the previous night, we got a better view of our Airbnb the next morning and realised how big it actually was. We checked out pretty early to make it in time for our next activity, which was kayaking with the seals. I was quite worried about getting sunburned, but they had this whole litter of sunblock there for you to spam. There was also a slight chance that the whole event might be cancelled due to weather, but thankfully it was okay, so they gave us a short briefing and we drove ourselves to the kayaking point. As you can see from my previous videos, I don't have a lot of strength or stamina, so I decided to do my husband a favour and let him do the kayaking instead. We managed to see one or two seals that were lazing around, but we didn't get to swim or kayak with them as I hoped to. It kind of depends on how enthused the seals are on the actual day, and I think it's pretty rare to be able to have close interactions with them. I think it was about 4 degrees that morning, so even though the sun was glaringly hot, it was actually pretty cold when the winds blow. We went to this Kaikoura seafood kiosk for lunch and it was pretty ex. We got to choose our own lobster and paid according to the weight, and then we waited for our lunch. When the food arrived, we realised that we ordered way too much and we only had about 10 minutes to finish the food before we had to drive off to our next activity. The portion was pretty generous, but overall we don't really recommend this place because it was a bit too expensive and I've had better barbecue seafood at Jurong West. This is easily my favourite activity and it's the 4-wheeler adventures on the Glenstray farm. We got to choose between riding an ATV or this car-like vehicle which we eventually opted for, and I was very surprised to find out that the whole property is owned by their family. There's a short training circuit that you have to complete and pass to show that you are a decent driver before they bring you through all the different routes like through the river creeks and also uphill through the slopes. Throughout the entire journey, there's one uncle in front of us and one uncle behind us to ensure our safety. They would facilitate the opening and closing of the gates as we move through the routes of their family mountains. After a brief stop at the peak, we continued driving and drove past some cows. We arrived at another rest stop and it turned out that they were carrying snacks and drinks for us in their bags, which was very sweet. I really enjoyed the views as we drove up and down the mountains and got to get close to the cows and goats. On this day, it happened to be just the two of us, so it felt like a private trip, which was really nice. Overall, it was a very healing and fun experience with nice people and nice views, so I highly recommend this if you are around the area.
可以来。OK， 按的是你 play this thing， 开起来就是了。
他有在打吗？哦呀。After our stop at Kaikoura, we were headed towards Arthur's Pass. It was about 260 km away and would take 3.5 hours without any stops. Adding the Kaikoura stop in our itinerary wasn't the best choice, as it added about 6 to 7 hours of extra driving in total. We did that because I really wanted to do the kayaking with seals and the four-wheeler adventure. If you are not that keen on the activities, skipping Kaikoura would actually be a better choice, as you can drive off directly from Castle Hill to Arthur's Pass. However, if you are flying in or out from Christchurch, stopping by Kaikoura might still be a good option. We reached our B&B in Arthur's Pass and it was already getting quite dark. It's a small and cozy cottage and there's a kitchenette inside for you to use, as there isn't any restaurants or food options nearby. Just before showering, we realized that the glass window in the bathroom wasn't covered and you can actually see inside, so we covered it up with a piece of towel. Here's our simple meal after a long day of activities and a really long drive, and it feels very nice to be able to have our own food inside our own Airbnb when it's really cold outside. We were super satisfied after having our share of cup noodles, and I cut up all the foods we had, and we will tapao the leftovers as snacks for tomorrow. We started the day with another trek and we chose to go for the Arthur's Pass walking track. There are a few walking tracks that start from the same car park, and after a while of walking, we reached the Devil's Punch Bowl waterfall. We continued climbing through many steps and we eventually reached this place with a beautiful stream. The weather was really nice today with ample sunlight and clear blue skies, so we stayed here for a while to enjoy the breeze. Currently trekking with sandals and socks because I think there's a blister under my toenail. 然后穿包鞋很痛，走不了路。So we can only do short hikes for now, so let's see how it goes. It's also good to keep a lookout for these road signs that show the elevation of the roads that we are driving on. We started to pass by a lot more beautiful one-way bridges, and generally we didn't spend much time in the west coast cause we had to make our way to Hokitika. The thing about planning road trips is that sometimes there might be road closures due to weather conditions and you might have to make a huge detour. For example, there seems to be a road closure here at the point of editing, but the route was clear for us last year during our actual trip. It was overall a little bit nerve-wracking and very sian for me because I don't like to change my plans, but I just remind myself that everything is actually fine as long as I am alive. Alternatively, you can also try driving camper vans, which allow you to be more flexible in tweaking your routes without having a fixed accommodation or destination to reach every night. We arrived in Hokitika on a Sunday and almost everything was closed, so we got some fruit from the supermarket. We were a little more than halfway into our trip and we really needed to do our laundry. We had to come back to camp for the dryer, so we didn't go far and just explored around the area. We went back to explore the town centre after loading our dryer, but there wasn't much to see because everything was closed. We went on to visit the Hokitika beach and took some random videos with the sign. I didn't feel like spending money in a cafe, so we went back to our accoms and made some strawberry honey toast. Shortly after, we went out again to hunt for dinner, and this was almost the only place that was open. Each tapao packet was super huge and was wrapped in newspaper. Unfortunately, they gave us the wrong order and we had normal chips instead of sweet potato fries that we topped up for, and overall the food was just a bit too fried for us. There was nothing much for us to do after having our fish and chips in the car. We realised that we were quite near the Hokitika Gorge and decided to drop by, although we initially planned to visit this place the next morning. On hindsight, it would have been better to stick to our original plan because it was about 7 PM when we arrived and it was getting dark really soon. I was chickening out and didn't dare to explore the rest of the trek, so we just stopped at this place and decided to go home. I felt like we didn't do much for the day, so we searched for what else is around the area. After taking a detour, we managed to spot some glowworms. Even though there were barriers in place, there were surprisingly many glowworms that we could see up close. There are more shops open the next day, and since Hokitika is famous for their jade, we went around to take a look.
So good.
We are both more interested in nature walks than shopping in New Zealand, so we left the town centre and went to a nearby lake. Apart from us, there was only one other family here, so the whole place was very serene and empty. I took an afternoon nap in the car, and when I woke up, it was already time for lunch. We arrived at Franz Josef Town, and by this time, we were both a little bit sian of Western food. I honestly thought that I would be okay, but after about 1.5 weeks, I really wanted to eat some rice or Hokkien mee. The population in New Zealand is quite sparse, and encounters with other people are not that common. Having so much space to ourselves feels very refreshing, but at the same time, we also know that we need to be really careful in case anything happens. The bridge was quite wobbly, and coupled with the strong winds, it was quite a fun walk. The colour of the water is a very pretty light turquoise or milky blue colour, which is the water of glacial water. There was a barricade at the end of the bridge, so we couldn't proceed any further. Whenever I see natural streams of clear water, I have this urge to put my hands through them to appreciate how clear they really are.
Cause it's coconut ice cream.
你故意拿 dairy 这个 dairy 的，还是
No, I
刚
just
好？
刚好。
我以为你这样好。那你啊，
Nice, okay, I use mine.
等一下，我看他写什么字。
We stopped to have an ice cream break during our drive to Fox Glacier and went on to our next walk before checking in. It only took us about 10 minutes to reach the Peters Pools, and it was really pretty with the reflections of the mountains in the waters. It feels nice to enjoy a low-hanging fruit after many days of long walks. We checked in after that at the Fox Glacier Lodge, and they had a hose with running water so we could give our Xiao Hui a little bath. Our room was on the first floor, which is a relief because we or my husband didn't have to carry the luggages up the stairs, and it was quite spacious overall. Surprisingly, there's a huge hot tub here that we didn't use because it would be too cold when we get out of the bath. Our original plan was to catch the sunset at Lake Matheson, but the sun was already setting when we arrived, so we decided to just admire the sunset from outside. We had dinner in the Betsy Jane Eatery and Bar, and this was hands down one of the best Western foods that we have had in New Zealand. I had the beef burger while my husband had the chicken burger, and they were both very good. We kind of over-ordered because we were so hungry, and we had brownies with ice cream for dessert. It was really nice as well, and I highly recommend this place if you are visiting Fox Glacier. We stayed at Fox Glacier Lodge, and they had an extensive breakfast buffet that we could help ourselves to. We were monitoring the weather closely because we booked a heli hike for today, and we are afraid that it will get cancelled due to weather conditions. Our accommodation was near the meeting point for the activity, so we decided to just finish our breakfast and go over there to wait for updates. It was only after we reached there that I realised that I booked a heli hike, which was a helicopter hike and not a helicopter ride. I was super prepared to admire the views of the icy mountains until I realised that we had to get off the helicopter and actually hike ourselves. This also means that I briefed my husband about the wrong activity, but we just went along with it. After the safety briefing, we took a bus to the heliport where we would be split into groups for takeoff. We queued up like little ducklings and boarded the helicopter one by one. Our group was also the last one to leave. It feels really cool to experience this in real life instead of in games or in PUBG only, and I got assigned to sit in the front. There was a designated area for landing, and everyone else was just squatting there in anticipation of our arrival. It was actually pretty warm despite being surrounded by glacial ice, but still cool enough for a comfortable walk with the low humidity. In the morning, a team is dispatched to recce the mountains and assess whether they are suitable for hiking. Existing footpaths may also be covered by fresh snow, so the team recreates these paths before we arrive. As we hike, our guide also paves the way ahead, making it easier for us to navigate the terrains with the steps that they have created.
We're gonna try to actually see some new caves.
New caves. So the block will just like fall, right? Actually.
It will maybe fall or just melt.
I see.
Sir, can you just stay in the river?
It's a manageable hike overall, just that you have to be very careful cause the ice can be quite slippery. They have also installed some rope railings along some paths, which makes it easier for you to go down without rolling off the mountains.
I'll give you a present. More. Wow.
After a while, our guide identified a safe and clean waterfall for us to explore. Apparently, the glacial water is clean and safe for consumption. They told us to take a sip and fill our water bottles with it. The guide also told us to wash our hair with it, but most of us didn't want to get ourselves wet except for this gentleman over here. There was this ice cave that we could slide down, but I fell pretty badly twice inside the cave, and I think everyone was very worried.
Yeah, okay.
We met some really nice people from Hong Kong and Taiwan during this trip, and we were helping each other to take photos and videos. The helicopter really looks like a housefly, and by this time we have spent about 2 to 3 hours at the mountains, and it was time to head back. I sat beside some friendly ladies who I immediately knew were Singaporeans because of our beautiful Singlish accent. They fed me some cookies on the way back and shared some experiences of driving their camper van. We concluded our trip by drinking more glacial water and glad that it turned out well even though we weren't really prepared for this hike. There were limited food options around, so we went back to Lake Matheson and went to the cafe for lunch. Here is a pamphlet that may be helpful, and we made our way back to the roads, and this time to our last destination, Wanaka. We later arrived at the Night's Wine Lookout, which gave us a nice overview of the coastal region. We later went on to the Dune Lake Walk, which was just about 10 minutes away, and overall the walk was on flat ground and it was very easy and manageable. Maybe because I've been spoiled by great views in Mirror Lakes or Peter's Pools Lookout, I feel like the views here were okay only, and you can skip this if you're running short of time. We finished up the walk and resumed our journey towards Wanaka.
We need to get our priorities.
This day illustrates how important your sunglasses really are, and it's a non-negotiable. The sun was setting, and the angle of the sun made it such that the sunlight was beaming directly into our eyes, and we couldn't see anything on some parts of the roads because of the glare. We reached the Blue Pools track after a while, but found out that it was closed. We met someone who told us that he still went ahead for a swim, but being obedient Singaporeans, we didn't really want to try because we're not too familiar with the place. It was also getting quite late, so we decided to move on and look for dinner. We managed to spot this restaurant along our way to our Airbnb, who very gratefully accepted our order even though it was just like 1-2 minutes before their closing time. It was close to 8:30 PM even though it's still quite bright, and we realised that our trip is coming to an end soon. We went to look for our place of comfort that never runs out, but sometimes apparently it does.
Hello! Hello!
Oh, that's so cute.
We arrived at one of the lookouts in Wanaka, but it already got so dark that we couldn't really see anything. Everything was really quiet and still, and we decided to quickly make our way to our Airbnb. Finding the right house was a bit challenging because there were no street lights, but thankfully, our Airbnb host left the lights on so we could find the unit. The key was left inside a lockbox near the room. Remember to make sure that you have the room or lockbox passcode from your Airbnb host before they go offline, especially if you tend to check in late like us. We got to meet our Airbnb host the next morning, played with their dog Pablo, and went off to Wanaka.
Smells good.
Our first stop was to see the Wanaka tree, and we took some photos of the tree. We found a nice log nearby and sat down to have our breakfast we packed earlier this morning. We initially wanted to go for a mountain kart riding activity, but it wasn't available. It was very clutch, but we managed to book a paragliding activity the day before. Here, our guides are driving us up to the takeoff point. We were told to leave most of our belongings in our car, so we only brought our jackets as well as our handphones. I didn't bring my cameras up just to be safe, and they did have a GoPro and we paid extra for the photos and video footage. Our guides did all the setup for us, and all we had to do was to wait to be strapped on. They told us to keep running even after our feet are off the ground, and after a while we can just cruise in the air. My guide made a mini roller coaster ride for me in the skies, and it felt really good. My husband's guide actually asked him whether he wanted to control the paraglider, but I think my guide was a bit too scared that I would go crazy, so she didn't give me that option.
So small.
We drove back to Wanaka's town centre after that and took a look around. We chanced upon this shop that sold many cute things, but I practiced self-control by looking at my U-Trip account balance and didn't buy anything. We had our lunch at Big Fig and it had a pretty long queue. Despite that, we didn't have to wait that long, and it's kind of like a Ang Mo Cai Peng kind of concept. I got a small while my husband got a medium-sized bowl, and the food was really good. We were lucky enough to get a seat, and they also provided free flow sparkling water. There seems to be a lot of things to do around Wanaka, and we chose one track to fill up the rest of our day with. We passed by a bakery and decided to get some snacks for our hike later. All the extra cream and dairy are quite nice, but can get jelak after a while. Wanaka gave off a chill and relaxing vibe despite it being a town centre. We felt that life was moving at a slower pace, which we really enjoyed. We headed off to visit the Wanaka lavender farm to get some souvenirs because it was approaching the end of our trip. Overall, they do offer a lot more products, but we do feel like they are also more commercialized as compared to the New Zealand alpine lavender farm. We could also do a sample tasting of the honey, but I preferred the ones we got in the earlier part of our trip from the Gaston Honey Shop. This area we are in is open to the public, while the other side of the fence requires a ticket for entry. We actually planned to hike the Roy's Peak this morning at 2 AM so that we could catch the sunset, but we decided against it eventually because of my rotting toenail. It was pretty nice and quiet on the way up, and the path was quite smooth. We soon reached the Diamond Lake viewpoint, and the route got a little bit steeper after this. We felt like it was still okay because the weather was like outdoor aircon, so it wasn't very unpleasant. I felt very sian because it was like an ongoing battle with my stamina and I was getting more and more punai fun. My husband encouraged me by making me laugh and we completed the hike together. After our unwavering perseverance, we reached the Lake Wanaka viewpoint. The weather was cloudy enough to give us sufficient shade and was also clear enough for us to see the mountains, so we were very grateful for today's weather. We managed to get back to our Airbnb before sunset and decided to eat at the bench outside tonight. I thought my idea of eating outdoors was nice and romantic and wondered why everyone chose to stay indoors when there's such nice aircon weather outside. And then I realised that it's so dark that you can't really see anything, and look at the amount of bugs that were waiting for us when we were trying to get inside. We are approaching the end of our trip, and today will be our last full day in New Zealand. We didn't plan an itinerary for today, so we had a few choices. We could either stay in Wanaka, head back to Queenstown, or visit Arrowtown for a short day trip. Husband found this beautiful place when we were aimlessly driving around, so we decided to just stop here for a bit. The wind was aggressively strong and my husband was enjoying every single bit of it while I was hanging on for my dear life. After being defeated by the winds, we found this nice place that sheltered us from the natural elements and we had our breakfast here. We didn't realise at the time, but the landscape was changing pretty rapidly because of the clouds and it was very pretty to look back to. It started to drizzle, so it's time to go, and we cheated on Raito before heading back to the car.
Hi, Jenny. Hi.
谁嘞？
We decided to head to the nearby town centre to grab some souvenirs, and we didn't know what to buy, so we just grabbed some chocolates. We also got some dog toys for Raito to apologise for our disappearance. We chose to visit Arrowtown for a short day trip, and here we continued our battle with the winds. This reminded us again why we should have a low maintenance hairstyle when visiting New Zealand, because no amount of hairstyling would help you with this. We definitely experienced one of the stronger winds here because our car was also shaking together with the winds. After that, we arrived at the Arrow Junction lookout point and got off for a nice view. We arrived at Arrowtown and found some horses at the side of a cafe. They belonged to the ladies who were dining at the cafe, who each rode their horses here as a form of transport. Overall, Arrowtown is a cute and vibey little place, but it has a lot of shopping which we are not really interested in. Before we knew it, we were at the last check-in of our entire New Zealand honeymoon. This B&B was a part of the owner's home which they partitioned off, and there's a small kitchenette area with a sink and a fridge. The bathroom was also pretty nice and clean and well equipped. We decided to give the famous Ferg burger a try, and the queue was so long. We went outside to wait again after placing our order, and we weren't very confident of getting any seats. I got the classic beef burger and my husband got the chicken burger with his old hands. We couldn't find any seats, so we just tapaoed the burgers and sat at a random bench. We went back to the ice cream place we visited on our first night in New Zealand. This time, we took our age and reduced ice cream appetite into consideration and only ordered one scoop each. The weather was getting a lot colder in Queenstown than in Wanaka. We are staying in Jack's Point for our last night, and it's a residential area. We found this nice swing that was overlooking many houses, and it gave us a very quaint and charming night view. It's day 13 in the title because I counted from 0, but it's actually our last day. Our flight back to Singapore was in the afternoon, and today is our last chance for our skydiving. It was rescheduled earlier due to weather conditions, and unfortunately, it was cancelled again today for the same reasons. I was super disappointed because I was really looking forward to the skydiving experience, but I guess it's not meant to be this time. After lunch, we headed back to our car for the very last time. The pickup and return points for our car rental was at the airport, which was very convenient. We just had to top up the petrol to full tank before we returned the car. After bidding our goodbyes to Xiaohui, we made our way to the airport, and that concludes the end of our 2-week New Zealand trip. That's all for the last installment of our New Zealand vlogs, where we explored Kaikoura, Arthur's Pass, Hokitika, Franz Joseph, Fox Glacier, Wanaka, Lake Howey and Arrowtown before we headed back to Queenstown. Our not-so-perfect itinerary is linked in the description box below, and I hope it will be helpful if you are planning for your own trip. Memories fade but videos don't, and thank you for spending your time reliving our experiences together with us. As always, thank you for watching and bye!